I heard the Nigerian president saying that there are no gays in Nigeria, and I was practically just angry, and I find it quite outrageous because I felt like this is not true. I decided to say, I'm here, this is me, and I would not be removed from the history of this country, basically. And that was why I came out on national television. And the reaction was immediate. So I moved from becoming this loved child of the country to becoming the most hated person.
My sexuality is just a small percentage of who I am. It's not my totality.
In a country like this, how dare you come out and say you are gay?
We don't want such thing in our country because, it's un-African.
These laws were often put in place by my own country.
Nigeria, Africa's most wealthy and populous nation. But it's also one of the most dangerous places in the world for lesbian, gay, bisexual and trans people. An increasingly hostile tone from the authorities and the enforcement of recent anti-gay laws has forced the already discreet queer community into hiding. One of Nigeria's most senior police officers even uses her Instagram account to warn gay people that they should leave the country or face prosecution.
Being a gay person in Nigeria is literally just being like in the jungle. If you're not afraid of being arrested by the police, you are in constant awareness of your neighbors ganging up against you and beating you up or being blackmailed. It's a very dangerous life experience to actually go through on a daily basis.
Bisi Alimi had become a darling of the nation with a starring role in Nigeria's favourite TV soap opera. But when rumours circulated about his sexuality in 2004, he risked everything and spoke out.
I called up the producer of the most watched talk show in Nigeria called New Dawn with Fumi. And I said, I want to come out as gay on their show, and they were quite shocked. Initially, it was a little bit like, it sounded a little bit crazy to them, and they were quite frightened, as much as I was then, about wanting to talk about being gay in a country like Nigeria.
People don't believe that anybody is gay by nature.
I'm not going to be forced into marrying a woman because society wants me to.
The reaction was instant. I lost my role on the set. I was never invited back to play the role I was playing. Nobody was going to give me a job. And sometimes I walk down the street, people say things, people shout at me, and it was quite frightening and terrifying.
In a country like this, how dare you come out and say you are gay?
A month after that time, a group of men broke into my home, and they knocked on the door. And when I opened the door, I had a slap across my face, and I just went blind completely. And I was tied up. My boyfriend was tied up, and they were beating us. After the attack, I left Nigeria 24 hours later. I had no plan. I had no plan whatsoever. I had no arrangement. There was nothing planned. I just had to leave the country. I saw a future that was bright, a future that was very promising. And suddenly, because of my sexuality and because I came out, everything came crashing down.
Most Nigerians believe that it's un-African to be gay, and over half believe that homosexuality is a Western phenomenon. Another study shows that almost all Nigerians believe people can't be born gay. The country's two prominent faiths are the main proponents of this view. In the south is the world's second largest Anglican community. Despite its own British roots, the Church of Nigeria sees no irony condemning homosexuality as a supposedly Western phenomenon. Unlike in the more liberal Western Anglican community, African church leaders have fiercely resisted gay bishops and same-sex marriage. Nigeria's former president, Obasanjo, described their position as a principled stand against homosexuality that was unbiblical, unnatural, and definitely un-African. In Nigeria's predominantly Muslim north, some states are under ultra-conservative Sharia law. Death by stoning is the prescribed punishment for homosexuality in this religious jurisdiction. The two men seen here in green were among a group who were arrested and tried for being gay in an Islamic Sharia court in Bauchi State. At least one man was punished with 20 lashes in front of a packed courthouse.
Persons who also make public show of same-sex amorous relationship shall be liable on conviction to a term of 10 years imprisonment.
The most recent political crackdown on homosexuality in Nigeria began in 2014. With a general election on the horizon, President Goodluck Jonathan passed the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act. This law isn't really about same-sex marriage. Homosexuality is already punishable by 14 years in prison or by death. In reality, this draconian law is designed to restrict the daily lives of LGBT people. Now anyone who supports LGBT clubs, organisations or charities faces 10 years in prison. Displaying same-sex affection in public, 10 years. Attending a gay marriage, 10 years in prison.
He did the right thing because that's gay is uncalled for. I mean, it's un-African. We don't want such things in our country.
The organisation Human Rights Watch says that the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act officially authorises abuses against LGBT people. Vigilantes have used the law as cover to attack people, and police have even raided HIV awareness meetings, claiming that the participants had been promoting homosexuality. The international community was outraged by the law, and Nigeria's anti-gay crackdown was challenged when current President Muhammadu Buhari met Barack Obama at the White House in 2015. But according to Buhari's spokesperson, the Nigerian president told American officials that gay sex is abhorrent to our culture.
When you go back in time, when you look at the histories of the different ethnic groups that have come together to make Nigeria what it is, you find that there have always been people who we will define today as being LGBTQ, essentially existent in our respective communities. And so, if anything, we should be pushing forward the narrative that it's very Nigerian, it's okay to be a member of the LGBTQ community, because that in itself is what makes Nigeria what it is, that diversity.
This map shows the countries in Africa where homosexuality is still a crime in June 2019. In many cases, it's persisting colonial-era laws that legislate against same-sex relationships.
I am all too aware that these laws were often put in place by my own country. They were wrong then, and they are wrong now.
Former British colonies have a particularly poor record for human rights violations against LGBT people. These two men from Malawi were sentenced to 14 years in prison in 2010 for publicly declaring that they wanted to marry. Elsewhere in Africa, there are also signs of progression. In January 2019, Angola decriminalised homosexuality as it adopted its first penal code since it gained independence from Portugal in 1975. It removed the antiquated anti-gay laws in that process. Mozambique did the same in 2015.
So help me God.
South Africa was one of the first countries in the world to introduce LGBT rights into its constitution in the 90s, as it prohibited discrimination on the grounds of race, gender, or sexuality. It's the only African country to recognise same-sex marriage, but violent attacks and in particular corrective rape still happen. Despite positive legal changes, these countries are still dangerous places for LGBT+ people. In Eastern Africa, Kenya has become the focal point in the region in the fight for decriminalisation.
Queer people are not on some agenda trying to make the rest of the world queer so that we can all be like in some queer cult. It's just about allowing people to be themselves and, allowing the Constitution allows for all human beings to be treated equally in our country, but then the law says otherwise.
Kaz Lucas hosts a popular podcast in Kenya called The Spread, which discusses sex and sexuality.
I found my kinky, queer, sex-positive community.
Kaz says Kenyans are becoming more accepting of queer people.
Every time there is a queer party in Kenya, there's always a lot of Eastern Africans who are in attendance and people who come here because they feel safer. Uganda also has similar harsh laws on homosexuality. So I feel like even though the laws here are not favoring LGBT people, it's definitely a safer environment.
The idea that homosexuality is un-African has severe consequences. It's used to justify human rights abuses, enforce extreme laws, extort, blackmail, deny proper healthcare, and ultimately, it destroys countless lives. Across the continent, queer Africans face an uphill struggle for acceptance.
It also has to be said that we are making progress. The progress we're making might not be coming quickly enough, but I do believe that change is coming in. It's definitely happening.
We have historical evidence of LGBT history across the continent. Maybe we don't use the word lesbian or gay for them because those words are Western words. But to deny the fact that there is an absence of same-gender loving across the continent, for me was not just offensive, but I felt it was just quite stupid in a way. And I decided to say, I'm here, I'm gay, and I will not be removed from the history of this country, basically.